Hey everyone, welcome to English with Hassan 1 and 2. If you're looking to master English, you're in the right place. Whether you're starting from scratch or aiming to improve your skills, I'm here to make your journey fun, easy, and super effective.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear students around the world. Welcome to your new English YouTube channel and classes. English course level 1, lesson 36. By the end of this mini lesson 36 part 1, you will have focused on known, learned and practiced the following objective. Verb to speak or speak in present simple, in positive, negative and question form. This is the rule, subject plus verb plus s. So he speak. If we say he speak, it's not correct. She speak, it's not correct. It speak, it's not correct. Why? Because the rule says when we have he, she, it in present simple, the verb take an s. So the correct form is he speaks, she speaks, it speaks. Let's see. English tenses. Present simple is the first tense we're going to deal with in this English course level 1A1. The most important words of this English tense are doesn't and does. Uses of present simple. We don't say uses, we say uses. Uses of present simple. We use the present simple when we speak in general. For habits or repeated action. For permanent situations. And with adverbs of frequency like always, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, and never. Let's continue. Positive or affirmative sentences with verb speak in present simple with subject plus verb plus s. So he speaks, she speaks, it speaks. In today's lesson we are not going to use it because it's just for animals. So because animals and objects, they don't speak. So we are going to use mainly he and she in the examples. Let's continue. So this is the rule. He speaks. If you write he speak, it's not correct. Henry speak is not correct. So you need to write Henry speaks. She speaks. Isabel speaks. The parrot speaks. It speaks. So I use the parrot just in this slide or another slide, so 2 slides, and we are going to use just he and she, and the names of men and women. So remember, in present simple, the verb with he, she, and it take an s. So the verb takes an s with he, she, and it, or a singular noun. Let's see more examples. The negative form in the present simple with he, she, it is with the word doesn't. Some students write don't. No, don't, it's not correct. So he doesn't speak. She doesn't speak. It doesn't speak. We notice that speak is with he, she, it, but it doesn't take s. Why? Because we have doesn't. So when we have doesn't, the verb doesn't take s with he, she, it. Because the student, they say, oh, the verb with he, she, it takes s. Why it doesn't take s here? Because there is the word doesn't. So when we have the word doesn't, the negative form, the verb remain in the infinitive form without any s. Let's see some examples. He doesn't speak. If you write he doesn't speak, it's not correct. Henry doesn't speak. It's not correct. Henry doesn't speak. She doesn't speak. Isabel doesn't speak. The parrot doesn't speak. It doesn't speak. Let's continue. Let's go to the question form. In the question form, with he, she, it, we ask with the word does. Does he speak? If you write does he speaks, it's not correct. So in the negative form and in the question form, the verb doesn't take an S. So does he speak? Does she speak? Does it speak? So the verb takes an S only in the positive form. You should remember this. Let's go to real examples. This is just the rule. Does he speak? Does Rafa speak? Does she speak? Does Sonia speak? Does Rodrigo speak? Let's continue. Pay attention to the examples. The affirmative form, positive form. He speaks English. Hassan speaks Arabic. She speaks French. Lydia speaks German. David speaks Italian. He speaks Chinese. Carmen speaks just one language. She speaks two languages. You see, when we have S, he, or Hassan, or Lydia, or she, or David, or Carmen, so we always put an S to the verb. So try to remember remember to put an S at the end of the verb in present simple with he, she, it, or a singular noun. Let's practice this to know it more. Let's go to the next slide. The negative form. Chris. So this word we don't pronounce it Chris. So in some words CH is pronounced K. So this word is Chris. Chris. Chris doesn't speak English. Chris doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak Arabic. Mary doesn't speak French. She doesn't speak German. Antonio doesn't speak Italian. He doesn't speak Chinese. Fuzia doesn't speak one language. She speaks two languages. She doesn't speak two languages. She speaks three languages. So you see, doesn't speak. So we don't have S with the verb when we have the word doesn't. Let's practice them. Let's go to the question form. Does Chris speak English? Does he speak Arabic? Does Mary speak French? Does she speak German? Does Antonio speak Italian? Does he speak Chinese? Does Fuzia speak one language? Does she speak two languages? So the same, when in the negative form or in the question form, the verb doesn't take S with he, she, it. Remember this rule. Let's see more examples. Positive form. Adam speaks to himself. He speaks to people. She speaks to you. Olga speaks to her teacher. Claire speaks about money. Tim speaks to his manager. Let's repeat after me. Adam speaks to himself. He speaks to people. She speaks to you. Olga speaks to her teacher. Claire speaks about money. Tim speaks to his manager. So we see the verb is with S because it's positive form. Let's see the negative form and let's see if we have S or not. Of course, we don't have S because we are in the negative form. So Adam doesn't speak to himself. He doesn't speak to people. She doesn't speak to you. Olga doesn't speak to her teacher. Claire doesn't speak about money. Tim doesn't speak to his manager. Let's repeat after me. Adam doesn't speak to himself. He doesn't speak to people. She doesn't speak to you. Olga doesn't speak to her teacher. Claire doesn't speak about money. Tim doesn't speak to his manager. Let's go to the question form and let's see if we are going to see S with the verb or not. Of course not. We are not going to see the S with the verb because it's the question form. So in the negative form and question form, don't put S to the verb with he, she, it. So does Adam speak to himself? Does he speak to people? Does she speak to you? Does Olga speak to her teacher? Does Claire speak about money? Does Tim speak to his manager? Let's repeat after me. Does Adam speak to himself? Does he speak to people? Does she speak to you? Does Olga speak to her teacher? Does Claire speak about money? Does Tim speak to his manager? Let's go to see more examples. Positive form. He speaks a strange language. Sophia speaks to her husband. So there is an R missing. Her, not he. Her. So write R. The R is missing. So Sophia speaks to her husband. Nancy speaks English very well. She speaks German really well. Jim speaks 7 languages. Richard speaks Japanese quite well. Let's repeat after me. He speaks a strange language. Sophia speaks to her husband. Nancy speaks English very well. She speaks German really well. Jim speaks 7 languages. Richard speaks Japanese quite well. Let's go to the negative form. He doesn't speak a strange language. Sophia doesn't speak to her husband, so there is an R missing. Her husband. Nancy doesn't speak English very well. She doesn't speak German really well. Jim doesn't speak 7 languages. Richard doesn't speak Japanese quite well. Let's go to the question form. Does he speak a strange language? Does Sophia speak to her husband? There is an R missing. It's a printing mistake. Does Nancy speak English very well? Does she speak German really well? Does Jim speak 7 languages? Does Richard speak Japanese quite well? Let's see more examples. Daisy speaks to her dog. Saul speaks our language. Fran speaks very fast. Bob speaks Indian. Indian is the language of India. Helen speaks about her project. Stevens speaks better than them. George speaks Korean. Noor speaks about Christmas. So the word Christmas, T is silent. So we have CH, but we don't pronounce it ch, we pronounce it k, Christmas. So let's repeat after me. Daisy speaks to her dog. Saul speaks our language. Fran speaks very fast. Bob speaks Indian. Helen speaks about her project. Stevens speaks better than them. George speaks Korean. Noor speaks about Christmas. So let's see these examples in the negative form. Daisy doesn't speak to her dog. Saul doesn't speak our language. Fran doesn't speak very fast. Bob doesn't speak Indian. So Indian with capital letter, because it's a language, it's a printing mistake. Helen doesn't speak about her project. Stevens doesn't speak better than them. George doesn't speak Korean, nor doesn't speak about Christmas. Let's see the question form. Does Daisy speak to her dog? Does Saul speak our language? Does Franz speak very fast? Does Bob speak Indian? So now it's correct with capital letter. Does Helen speak about her project? Does Steven speak better than them? Does George speak Korean? Does Noor speak about Christmas? In conclusion, from all the examples we've studied so far, we notice that the verb speak in present simple changes only in the positive with he, she, it. He speaks, she speaks, it speaks. It doesn't change in the negative and question. He doesn't speak and does he speak. In the next lesson, we'll practice closed questions with does and short answers with the words he and she.
And with that, we've reached the end of today's lesson. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. Share with us in the comments what you learned or if you have any questions. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new lessons. Together, we'll make learning English a fun and easy experience. I'll see you in the next video, God willing. Goodbye.